Mumbai-based news and pop photographer Pradeep Chandra is so ubiquitous that sometimes one suspects there are at least two or three of him. In a career spanning 6 decades, Pradeep has produced a hugely diverse body of news and pop photographs, some of which have found their way into 5 much-regarded pictorial coffee table books. They are A.B. the Legend, a photographer's tribute; M.F. Husain, a pictorial tribute; Aamir Khan, actor, activist, achiever; Abhishek Bachchan, style and substance; Amitabh Bachchan, a kaleidoscope. Pradeep is a remarkably persistent and yet amiable professional, a combination which has earned him both access and respect in the frenzied worlds of Hindi cinema, politics, and beyond. As someone who has been both an insider and outsider to the world of movies, he has been accustomed to showbiz glamour since the age of 10. As he points out, he had photographed Waheeda Rehman, Anand, Jayant, Chanchal, Suchitra Sen, Madhubala, and Ragini while he was still in school. The reason being that filmmaker Shankar Mukherjee was his neighbor and Pradeep's brother, Shiv Chandra, was his assistant director. The Filmistan studio was Pradeep's regular haunt even as a school student. His first regular assignment was courtesy of the director Raj Khosla for the 1969 Rajesh Khanna starrer Do Raste. Pradeep has many stories to tell, and he tells some of them on Mayank Shah Reports. Pradeep Chandra. Okay, you began photography as a schoolboy.
Right.
I presume we are talking sometime in the middle or late 1960s.
Yes, I would say I started it must have been 60 because Sarhad was released in 61 or something when I saw Suchitra Sen and Devanand for the first time. So this should be 60, I think, when I started.
May I ask how old you were?
Must have been 10. I was born 50.
At 10 years old, you began to photograph. I don't think there are too many cases like that in the world, right?
See, I'll tell you something. My brother had given me a camera called Sure Shot.
I see.
Which was for 20 rupees he had bought for me. At the same time, we had a Nikon at home. And since brother was an AD, he could not use the camera all time when he was on the sets. So I used to go by my school bus instead of getting down at my house in Malad. I used to get down outside Filmistan studios in Goregaon. And when I go there, I just used to sit with the camera and I knew how to handle it. 35 का कैमरा होता था यूं अपना
जी
तो sometime I just used to shoot and nobody used to tell me anything because Shankar Mukherjee was just our neighbor and Bhaiya was there and Dev Saab and all. Of course, they never bothered also who is there, and even if they bothered, they thought.
Bhaiya का नाम बता दीजिए जरा please.
Shiv Chandra, Shivachandr. And so I used to shoot, and I remember the first time I saw Devanand Suchitra Sen. That was not at Filmistan, but at Bombay Talkies. And there was a small pond, and this Suchitra Sen was standing there with Dev Saab, and she was wearing a very some material sari, I don't know, very thin type of material, nylon or whatever it was called.
Probably Georgette.
Could be Georgette. So he just used to take some water from this pond and sprinkle on her, on her body. That was the first time I remember seeing Suchitra Sen.
Oh, I see.
I
That
did
is
not see
that,
it at that time, but that was the first time I saw them.
that is such a picturesque memory.
I
It's
know.
almost like a movie, right? Devanand sprinkling some water on Suchitra Sen.
Not Devanand, Shankar
Oh,
Mukherjee.
oh,
That,
Shankar Mukherjee. Sorry about that. Yeah. Okay, so your exposure to the world of Hindi cinema and its glamour was courtesy of your brother, Mr. Shiv Chandra.
right, right.
And as you mentioned, Filmistan Studios. What are your memories of the Filmistan studio of that day or that era?
See the Filmistan studios. I remember when I used to go initially. My brother used to give me 2 annas to go and have lunch in the canteen. And I used to go and I used to say, "Khana to roz khata hun." So I used to buy a laddu,
Acha,
which was for 1 anna. And I used to eat one laddu and I used to keep 1 anna for myself.
acha,
That was the earliest memory. And this Shankar Mukherjee had a very, very small office on the first or second floor, called Alankar Chitra. And sometime I just used to go and sit there. There was not enough space for not more than 3 or 4 people, or roam around in the studio. And
right,
everybody used to see bacha hai, so nobody used to bother kaun hai, kya hai. There was not much security at that time.
right. But it's interesting. I mean, I'm thinking that were you conscious of that you were surrounded by glamour at that age? Were you even aware that this was glamorous?
I was, but I was not conscious of glamour. But one person, of course, I was a fan of ever since I was very young, was Dev Anand.
Right.
So when I saw Dev Anand, ekdam se man mein, oh, Dev Saab is there. That sort of
Acha,
feeling.
acha,
But otherwise, when I went to see the shooting of Jumru, that was a group of dancers coming, and there was set like a mountain like, and they were coming, and with a song, some song was being picturized on them. And I thought, Kya re, ye Madhubala hai. But then I realized that after 10 girls, it's the 11th one which Madhubala comes alone.
acha,
So I went running home to my sister and my elder sister Sheila, and I told her, "Chalo, chalo, वहाँ Madhubala की shooting में जाते हैं." And then I took her. And those
acha.
extras who were dancing, I said, "This is Madhubala." My sister said, "What nonsense! This is not Madhubala." And then came Madhubala, and we saw.
Acha. Was Kishore Kumar there at that point?
Kishore Kumar was there. Kishore Kumar was there, and I remember there was a market scene once, and there were a lot of vegetables, and it was being sold on this hath gadi. And I heard talk, somebody telling the other person that Kishore Kumar is such a miser and good at spending money. He said, instead of hiring the thing, just hire this hath gadi and buy all the vegetables and keep.
Acha. Yes. No, these are remarkable memories. I don't know of any case where a child, 10-year-old, is on the sets of all these movies, surrounded by massive film stars, almost unconscious of their presence and just getting into the groove of things. It's by itself, it's very filmic. Do you think about that at all?
I honestly never thought of that. I remember that when Chanchal had been abroad, if I'm not mistaken, and she had given a box of chocolates to my brother. And that day I happened to be on the set, and that was the first time I ate English chocolate. I mean, I was told that bahar se aaya hai.
Acha. Interesting. You know, you photographed a whole host of celebrated cinema actors. Even as a schoolboy, you had written to me, and I'm particularly interested in three names, and I'm sure you can guess which three names I'm talking about. Waheeda Rehman, Madhubala, and Suchitra Sen, who were, by a remarkable coincidence, regarded as the most beautiful women of that era and any era after that.
I agree.
I would like to talk one by one. Let's begin with Madhubala. What are your memories of having photographed her?
See, the thing is, I did not get to shoot much Madhubala. Maybe I shot a couple of times, and I just shot pictures, not realizing that this woman is going to be the Madhubala at some point. But of course, when I saw Suchitra Sen, I thought, and even today, I thought that she was the most beautiful woman I've seen in my life.
I see. I see.
And later on Madhubala, I remember when I used to go to Filmistan studios, there used to be that visitors are not allowed. Of course, I was allowed because one, I was a kid. Secondly, I was not a visitor. I was Shankar Mukherjee was known to me. Bhaiya was there. But I remember there was a dance sequence or what it was a couple of times that visitors wanted to come inside and they were not allowed. It was written boldly, visitors not allowed.
So Madhubala, you shot a couple of times.
Yes.
Do you have any visual memory as again 10, 11-year-old child with a camera? What would someone like Madhubala think of that? Look at this little boy who has a camera with him and he's shooting me. Do you have any memory of that at all?
I don't remember that as anything as such. And the picture of Waheeda Rehman which I shot, that I have some memory that the camera had a small telephoto lens. I think it was 135 or something. And that was Nikon camera. And there was a night shot where Waheeda Rehman is in the arms of Dev Anand. Dev Anand has she has run away with Dev Saab, and he's an advocate, but he falls in love with her and runs away with her, and then he realizes this should not be done. These two bikes come, this, police inspector they come, and when the headlight is on her face, that is the time I had shot those pictures.
I see. Do you remember which film it was?
The film was called at that time 13 July ki raat ko, and when the film was released, it was renamed as Baat Ek Raat Ki.
Oh, really? That it had wonderful songs.
Akela Hoon Duniya Mein.
Great songs. It's interesting, Pradeep. Even as a friend, I've known you for a long time, but we never talked about these things ever. It strikes me that you're essentially throwing this little nuggets of Hindi cinema history. 13 July ki raat became Baat Ek Raat Ki, and then you suddenly are shooting Waheeda Rehman lit up by a car headlight. It's quite extraordinary. Have you kept any of those photographs?
See, that Waheeda Rehman I have got, and how I got that picture, because that was in the collection of Times of India.
I see.
I didn't have the negative. So sometimes when I was working at the Illustrated Weekly, that picture reappeared in the film fair. When it reappeared in the film fair, I went to the clerk and I said, you have to mark the payment for me for this picture because this is my photograph. So he marked the payment. So when it went to the editor, the editor said, what nonsense is, how can he shoot this picture? Kaat diya. He said, he didn't give me the payment for that. So, but when I was weekly, I told that clerk, I said, "Acha, wo chodo about the payment. Just give me the original photograph."
Acha.
So I brought back that picture and I gifted it to a friend of mine who is a collector of photographs.
I see. Did you ever get to talk about these things with, say, someone like Waheeda Rehman? Because I'm sure you have since been in touch with them.
I did speak to her, and though I must say that I don't know Waheeda Rehman much, but once we had to invite her for lunch, and the problem was who would pay the bill. The company was not willing to pay.
I see.
So I told the reporter I'll organize it for her. So I had organized it at Hotel Regent, which now is Taj Land's End in Bandra. So Waheeda ji and Nanda had come, and we were sitting and talking. Then I told Waheeda ji about this. And then when the interview was over, because I was not interviewing, my job was only to take one picture, couple of pictures. I was talking to Waheeda Rehman and I said, I had a question for her. I said that you have met so many actors and so many you're surrounded by handsome men, from Guru Dutt, Dev Anand, Ashok Kumar, everybody, you worked with everybody. Did you ever thought that this particular man is a man for me? Or she just looked like this and she smiled and she said, हाँ, एक बार हम बैठे थे, कुछ ऐसा कोई नदी किनारे या कहीं था, और मेरे बगल में राज साहब बैठे थे, और राज साहब ने गॉगल्स लगाया हुआ था और उनके बाल उड़ रहे थे, और जब मैंने ऐसे देखा उनको, तो he looked so handsome, मुझे लगा he's what a man.
अच्छा.
So I asked her about Dev Anand, because I was a Dev Anand fan and had seen all his pictures with Waheeda Rehman रूप की रानी, चोरों का राजा, 16वां साल, असली नकली, नहीं सॉरी, असली नकली साधना. तो
That's true, yeah.
I said, what about Dev साहब? How is it? देव को फुर्सत कहाँ होती थी किसी को देखने की? Dev was busy in himself.
That's true.
Waheeda Rehman sitting next to him.
That's hilarious because Dev Saab was self-absorbed. I mean, you knew him, I knew him rather well, but he was self-absorbed in a very charming way.
Very charming.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of Mr. Anand, you knew him for a long time. What do you think are the striking features of a movie star like that?
I would say, particularly if you're talking about Dev Saab, he was a very stylish man. But at the same time, and he was workaholic.
Right.
His only aim in life, it looked as if it was to work. I had photographed him right from, of course, Baat Ek Raat Ki was a very old thing when I was very young. But in the later years also, I photographed him till he was alive and he was shooting with people. Whenever you meet him at any time, he was just into, come, let's do it. One day I told him, I went to meet him, I remember it was a Friday and we were chatting something in his office. And there were a lot of papers scattered on his sofa where he used to sit. And he says, you see all these, my autobiography I've written. I'm writing everything in my own handwriting. Here it is. And then he wanted one picture from me. He said, give me that photograph of him and Amitabh Bachchan dressed in the similar sari.
Right. Yeah, that's a well-known picture, yes.
It appeared on the front page of Bombay Times. He said, give me a copy of this. I want this. I want to use it in my book. And then as we were talking, I told him that he said that I had come to Bombay and this month, blah, 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 I had come in Frontier Mail as well. I said, why don't we go and do a photo shoot at Bombay Central Station with you? He said, that's a great idea. Let's do it. I said, when? He said, come on Sunday. Come at 2 o'clock, we'll go.
Achha.
So I went back to office and I spoke to my editor. He said, I met Dev Saab today and this is the thing we discussed. Because I was not the editor, so I had to take my approval. Mostly she used to agree, but still. So she said, do it. So on Sunday when I went, Dev Saab was sitting alone as usual. Generally he used to sit alone. Maybe one person in his room, say Sunil or somebody, or otherwise he's alone working. So I said, Dev Saab, let's go. Said, go where? I said, Bombay Central. He said, Pradeep, I'll leave it that. We'll do it some other time. Why don't we come out and do the picture with this lovely posters, in the building, in this, outside this, and we'll do it with the old poster. I remember Dev Saab, don't do this like this. I've already promised my editor and taken her permission. We have to do this. He said, okay, then we'll go. Had it been any other actor, he would have insisted that we will not go. No means no.
Right.
Dev Saab agreed. He came and he had is that old Fiat which used to travel. We both were sitting behind, Dev Saab and me, and we were talking. And generally he used to sit in front.
Right.
But मैंने कहा Dev Saab आएंगे तो आपसे बात भी हो जाएगी. We both sat behind and we were talking. So his driver said कि Dev Saab अब ये कार बहुत पुरानी हो गई है. हम लोग दूसरी कार क्यों नहीं लेते? He had lot of other cars. He had Mercedes.
Right.
So Mercedes कल से ले आए तो Dev Saab smiled and said, अब ये कार तो मेरे साथ ही जाएगी.
अच्छा.
यही ठीक है. We went to Bombay Central. He came out and honestly speaking, there was not much of crowd to look at him. His fan followers, and it was I think 3 o'clock, 3:34, and some coolies, few people came, about 15-20 people,
Right.
and he gave me autographed and all. We took a picture of him with that round clock outside Bombay Central and with those coolies and taxis, and then we came back. I remember that once, very late when he left. Before he went to abroad and expired a couple of years back, I went to meet him one day and we did an interview with him. Carol did the interview I had fixed for her. And Ayaz wanted to do something. Ayaz Memon.
Right.
So I told him, I said, Ayaz wants to do. He said, Ayaz, क्या कर रहे हैं आजकल? He said, कर रहे हैं अपना TV भी करते हैं ऐसा ऐसा. He said, ask him to talk to me. So I called him, and there he itself, Devsab spoke to him, and they fixed the appointment. And they did the interview and everything. And then the next day I told Devsab that a friend of mine wants to meet you, and she wants to meet you tomorrow. So he said, कल तो बिल्कुल possible नहीं है. Make it day after tomorrow. So I said, Devsab, please do it tomorrow because I've already told her and she has very little time. He said, okay, then in that case, what you do, you call her after 9. Because tomorrow I have to go early morning for my editing in Anil East somewhere. He had his office at Khar.
Right.
Makeshift office.
Yeah.
So he met her at 9:30 in the night, and she wanted to invite him to be the chief guest. He says, I'm very, very tired up. I told Pradeep I will not be able to see you. But he says, nahi, karna hi hai. So I said, okay, come and see me. But anyway, I'll give you my good wishes. Do you have a brochure or something? He wrote, blah, 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 all the best. And there he is.
Gee.
Full of life.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, I'll come to the other names in a minute. I'm very interested in someone like Jayant, originally, of course, Zakaria Khan, the father of Amjad Khan and Imtiaz Khan. You photographed Jayant. Jayant was known as Jayant Rowdy because he was a tough, looming, towering figure, very handsome man,
Yes.
and a very competent actor. What are your memories of Jayant?
I would say Jayant, people keep talking about Pathan, that Aamir Khan is a Pathan, Salman Khan is a Pathan, Shah Rukh Khan is a Pathan,
Right.
Dilip Saab is a Pathan. But if you go to see the Pathan look, that had Jayant, that had Ajit. Ajit had that look of a Pathan, hefty body. When I photographed him earlier, he was shooting for Jhumru.
I see.
And the first shot, when I shot of him, I remember that if I'm right, he was sitting with Madhubala in a car, and he was driving. So at that, you can't drive a car in the whatever you call the hall or set or whatever. So they used to just shake the car, from behind. Two
Yeah.
people were shaking, and there's a back projection going on. So that was the time I shot him with Madhubala. But later I did a lot of pictures with him when I was working for Mera Gaon Mera Desh,
Raj Khosla's.
Raj Khosla. And one day what happened when we were in Udaipur, for some reason, Bolu told me Bolu was the associate producer of that film, because that film was being produced not by Raj Khosla, but by his brother Lake Raj and Bolu.
I see.
It was under Khosla Enterprises. And why they were making that film under Khosla Enterprises, there was a reason to it. Before Do Raste, there were 2-3 films of Raj Khosla which had flopped. I remember one was Chirag. He directed for Premji.
Was it Sunil Dutt or no?
Ji?
Was it Sunil Dutt, Chirag?
Yes, Sunil Dutt, Asha Parekh.
Madan Mohan's, they had great songs.
Yes, he great song.
Yeah.
So they thought that if this film flops, nobody would finance Raj Khosla. So it's better that before Do Raste gets over, they start a new film under a new banner. That is how this thing was
I see.
Khosla Enterprises.
I see.
So when we went there, we used to go to villages, about 30 kilometers, 40 kilometers away from Udaipur. I don't even remember how many kilometers. Like there was a village, I still remember the name Eklenji or Sisarma. I was staying, and the staff was staying at Apsara Hotel, and Dharmendra and Vinod Khanna, Dharmendra and Asha Parekh, all these people used to stay in Lakshmi Vilas. Only Vinod Khanna used to stay at Lake Palace.
Right.
Because others didn't get placed there. So one day, for some reason I don't know, Bolu told me he dropped me somewhere in the middle of a jungle or somewhere, and you said you stand here only. And when Jayant will come, you come with him. I said, भाई मेरे पास phone नहीं है, कुछ नहीं. That time there was no mobile or anything. I don't know the address. This is a new place for me. He said, नहीं, he will come. 1 घंटे बाद आएंगे, तो तुम लेके आना उनको.
अच्छा.
I was standing there for an hour, and after an hour I saw Jayant coming, and Jayant knew that this guy will be waiting for me. And then I went with him. So that day we had a long chat. I told him about the film I had seen of him. Madhumati was a great film of Jayant.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I told him the films I had seen of him, and generally discussed with him. He said that time I was also quite young at that time. I must have been, I think 21 or something, 21.
Yeah.
But definitely, because that film was being produced with Do Raste.
Okay.
As Do Raste was coming to an end, they started this.
You know, it's interesting. You've given me a great segue because my next question is about Do Raste, 1969. Raj Khosla assigned you to take photograph for that, right?
Yes.
And you come upon a certain young man called Rajesh Khanna.
Correct.
What are your memories of first? Because Rajesh Khanna it was almost the same time as Aradhna, Ittefaq. 1969 had these three and one more release. Had Aradhna already been released by that time?
No, both the film shooting were on because Rajesh Khanna, often I used to go to meet Rajesh Khanna on the sets of Aradhna. So
I see.
See what happened, one day I went with the camera to Mehboob Studios and Rajesh Khanna was sitting in the lawn. When I looked at him from a distance, I thought it was Jayant.
Huh.
No, not Jayant, sorry, Jitendra.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So I went to Rajesh Khanna and he was sitting there and chatting with somebody, and I said, I'm a photographer and can I do some pictures with you? He said, Kar le. So, well, I said, can we go this side? He said, come. I went and shot some pictures. So he said, तो ऐसा कर ये इसके मुझे photos लाके दिखा. I shot a roll, 120 roll, like 12 pictures or something. He said, कहाँ पे आऊँ? He said, I'm shooting here only. Come here. And I knew what was fan mail and all that. So I printed those photographs like a fan mail on postcard size. The little space left for such autograph. And next day I went and showed it to Rajesh Khanna. He said, अरे बहुत अच्छा फोटो है और very nice. तू ऐसा कर इसका मुझे 300 कॉपी बना दे. I'm thrilled at that age, first photograph, 300 copies. Same time, Prem Chopra walked in. Rajesh Khanna said, Prem, I can't speak Punjabi. He was talking Punjabi. Right. He's photo खींचा and I've given him. He was talking Punjabi. I've given him to make 300 copies. Prem Chopra looked at me, shabbily dressed young boy, wearing kurta pant, chappal, just a camera, not a camera bag. He looked at me and he says, looked at Rajesh Khanna and he told Rajesh Khanna, काके तू ऐसा कर, एक बार और shoot करवा ले, इसको जाने दे.
अच्छा.
So I never got that order. But as I was hanging around, Rajesh Khanna said, you want some work? Put you to Raj Khosla. So he took me. He introduced me to Raj Khosla. He told said, Raj is very good. He did some work. आप इसको ले लो still के लिए वगैरह. So Raj Khosla called his nephew Bolu Khosla, who produced Raste Ka Patthar later. Raste Ka Patthar and Mera Gaon Mera Desh, of course. And he told Bolu that take him, he will do the stills and all that. So Bolu came to me and sat in the garden and he asked me my background, ये वो सब. And then he said कि क्या है हमारा जो फोटोग्राफर है ना, he had a hunch problem. He was like this.
Achha.
So those days when you are shooting a photograph with a 120 camera, they used to be on stand. So you always have to shoot picture like this. So for a hunchman, it was easy to do that like this.
Right.
So they all used to call him Jug Gaya Asman. So he said, Jug Gaya Asman, सब ऐसा भी अपना झगड़ा चल रहा है, तू आजा कल से.
अच्छा.
I said, who's Jug Gaya Asman? यार Jug Gaya Asman को नहीं जानता? Oh, he's troubling. He's like this. And I got the job. And after attending office for two, 3 days, because I have no work, I used to go every day. चलो बैठने की जगह है. So he said, Pradeep, tell me one thing, that how are you going to make prints and all? So I said, I'll speak to somebody. I'll fix something. So he said, no, you do one thing. You set up a lab. And in Raj Khosla's garage, which was at Marina Apartments, he set up my garage. I mean, dark room. They have art director, they have carpenters, everybody. They said, ठीक है, यहाँ पे फट्टा लगा दो, यहाँ पे ऐसा लगा दो, यहाँ पे डिश लगा दो, यहाँ पे नल लगा दो. The dark room was set in one day.
Oh, okay.
He took me to Fountain, DN Road. I knew about the enlarger and everything. He said, खरीद लो जो लेने का. I was बहुत thrilled. What an opportunity. And we bought that, and that is how the dark room was set up. And Raj Khosla was very happy that this guy is working. So Raj Khosla used to call me sometime in the night. He used to send somebody. I kept Pradeep Bula ke lao. So when I used to go to his room, he would be sitting in his, not in the hall, at one room adjacent to hall, and singing Kale Saigal song, Ek Bangla Bare Nyara, all by himself, with harmonium.
Was he a good singer?
He was a good singer, very good singer.
Okay.
Because I गाने का तो मुझे सुनने का शौक है, and Mohammad Rafi and all that heard. He was a very good singer. And then one day in the night, he tells me that, Pradeep, can you write? I said, no. He said, okay, what? He showed me a book of costumes of women. He said, you do one thing. I'll send you with my own money. You go travel around the country, do pictures of what all women, what wear, attire and everything. And then come back. I will write a book for you.
Oh, I see.
I do the pictures. Now, I never knew that after so many years, I'm genuinely going to write a book.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh, these are great stories. You know, I'm jumping a bit since we are talking of Rajesh Khanna. One has to talk of your other great acquaintance, Amitabh Bachchan. When did you first meet him and under what circumstances?
See, the thing is, circumstances were such that I was about to meet him in Bombay, but I missed him.
Okay,
Well,
which year are we talking?
We are talking about 69.
Oh, again 69, the same year.
No, I did not meet him here.
Okay, no, I understand, but you're talking the same year.
Yes.
Okay.
When we were doing when we were about to start this film Mera Gaon Mera Desh, Raj Khosla asked me that, have you seen Mujhe Jeene Do? I said no. So he said, you do one thing, go to Sunil Dutt's office and you see the photographs of Mera Gaon Mera Desh.
Acha.
Because next film is on dacoits, so you should know what sort of pictures you have to shoot and all that. So I went to Dutt Saab's office, rang the bell. So this guy who opened the door, his name was Raj Grover, who was very close to Dutt Saab, whatever he was doing, publicity. And I told him I've come from Raj Khosla's office and I want to see this photographs. He said, come. I sat there and he brought 2 huge albums of Mujhe Jeene Do and said, ye dekho. And there was another guy who was lying in his office all bandaged. ऐसे सोया हुआ था. So I asked him, who is he? So that was the actor Ranjit.
Oh, acha.
And he was actually Gopal earlier.
Right.
He had met with an accident.
Acha.
So Dutt Saab had sent him from Rajasthan, Jaisalmer, to his office. And this Raj Grover was taking care of him.
Oh, I see.
So Raj Grover was going through a lot of pictures, huge prints, 10 by 12 or 12 by 15, I don't remember. That is where I saw the images from Amitabh Bachchan first. He had a bunch of.
Okay, and when was your first personal meeting with him?
First meeting was when he got married and he had come to Delhi,
I see.
and I was to go and do some pictures for Saptahik Hindustan, which Manohar Sham Joshi was editing the paper magazine.
Right.
So me and a reporter had been to him, and we took the appointment and went. Actually, we went to meet Jaya. So we went. Teji Bachchan was there. She opened and she said, "आइए बैठिए." तो हम लोग बैठे जब चाय वाय आ गई. Spent quite a lot of time, and there was no sign of Jaya Bachchan. I still remember that line what she told me. I've written in both of my books. I said, "तेजी जी कब तक आएंगे जया जी?" तो she said, "अभी बैठिए, इंतजार करिए. अभी तो मैंने खुद अपने बहू को ठीक से देखा नहीं है."
अच्छा.
And that is when Amitabh Bachchan walked in. He was wearing a red color t-shirt, round neck. He had a gold chain hanging. I think you're also wearing what? Something like that.
No,
Like
mine
it's-
is this
Ah.
the headphone. Yeah.
Exactly the same way, the same
Okay.
style. That is when I met him for the first time. And we shot pictures. There's not much of conversation. The conversation happened between the journalist and Amitabh Bachchan.
Right.
Not much with me. I shot pictures and we left.
Okay. So, and since then you had, I presume, a great deal of interactions with him, because I've seen a lot of your photographs with him at various functions that you've organized or you've been. What kind of a person does he come across to you?
I see. The thing is, well, from that, after that, I came to meet him when there was a magazine called Dream Star,
Uh-huh.
which was launched in Delhi. And the guy who had launched the magazine, Anil Narendra, claimed that he knew Amitabh Bachchan very well. So he had given me a letter. He said, "You go to Bombay and give him the first copy of this magazine." That is how I came to Bombay and met him. He was shooting for Hera Fairy at Mohan Studios with Vinod Khanna. And I went to him in the makeup room and showed him the magazine. I think he was not very happy to see the magazine because the photograph which was there on the cover was not very very interesting. But he said, "Yes, I'll give you the time. You can do the pictures." But that time never came. I was there for 3-4 days, and Vinod Khanna was known to me because of Mera Gaon Mera Desh. I did shoot everybody, and Amitabh Bachchan, not really. Not a camera look that you are sitting for a photograph. Okay, let's do a picture.
Right.
You can do a picture. You can do a shoot. And then the other day I saw he was going on a cycle to meet Shankar Mukherjee, who was
Achha.
sitting on the other set, same studio for Chaitali. So during lunch break, I saw him cycling.
Achha.
I shot the picture also, but unfortunately the picture came shaky. It was shot on a 120 camera.
Achha. Achha.
Could not use it.
You know, it appears to me that movie photography chose you. Then how did you go on to choose news photography in the latter part of your career?
I would say that honestly speaking, this has been just a chance that I have been shooting pictures of film stars. But otherwise, as you know, that I have always worked in a newspaper ever since you have known me.
Right.
I worked with the Free Press, the Independent, the Indian Post, the Week magazine,
Right.
the Illustrated Weekly of India, Bombay Times. So for these, especially these magazines, they used to need pictures of these. Like somebody is doing an interview with Amitabh Bachchan, so you need a picture.
Right.
So that is how I used to go and shoot. And of course, I had little interest in film since I had been to stars and seen so many actors. So whenever I used to get time, I used to just go and shoot. At that time, it was not difficult to enter a set or anything. All that you have to say, press, take a job.
Right. True. Yeah. You know, it strikes me that there is obviously a difference between shooting a movie star and shooting, say, a politician. Movie star is very savvy with angles and how to pose and light, etc. Politicians are not. It's more often than not, these are candid shots. What difference do you personally find when it comes to action news photography and the movie photography? Action, by action I mean, say there is a riot or there is a police raid or things of that nature, where you cannot control the shot. It's you're given a situation and you make the best of it, right?
See, while doing such shoots, I mean, I have covered Bombay riots, I have covered this Taj when
Right.
it is there, and lot of I think whatever happened in Bombay in the last 30-40 years. What I have kept in mind while shooting this picture when there is a huge crowd is which is a good place to shoot from. I've always looked for a composition. One, which side is the light? I've looked for only two things. One is the lighting. I mean, you can't control in such places
Right.
like Bombay Riots. The second is composition.
Right.
Like when I was shooting, I've shot a lot of pictures of Bombay riots. While many of the photographers I saw they have been busy shooting police, hundreds of police going around. I have been rather just taken one dead body and the entire huge canvas, empty canvas.
Right.
And I have not gruesome pictures. I have avoided. Whenever there is an opportunity, I have tried this. I should avoid. Even when I went to do story on Kashmiri Pandits, which I did an exhibition also,
Right,
I was not
right.
looking for women crying, and oh, mar gaya, ye ho gaya, wo ho
Yeah.
gaya.
What is your personal preference? Do you find hard news photography more exciting or movie shoots?
I think news is more interesting.
Okay,
News
so
is
that,
very
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, speaking of that, I mean, I was going through the list of your 5 books. One subject I'm deeply, deeply interested in is, of course, the great Maqbool Fida Husain, whom you knew very well. What are your memories of M.F. Husain, and when did you first meet him?
The first time I met M.F. Husain was in Delhi. He had a car which he had painted himself.
I remember that, yes.
So every time he used to come to this Connaught Place, there used to be a coffee house. Every time he used to come there, people used to say, "Arey, wo daadi wala Baba aa gaya." That is when I met him, and then I met him at Triveni Kala Sangam.
Right.
Sorry, Triveni Art Gallery, or is
Yeah.
it called Kala Sangam? I don't remember. He had an exhibition there, and when I went to see the exhibition, I realized that all the paintings there which are put up were sold. But I knew of M.F. Husain ever since I was a boy. I think when Nehru died, there was a cover story on Jawaharlal Nehru, and the cover painting was done by M.F. Husain in his Husain style. And also he had done, I think, 3 more portraits inside. So when I asked my father about this, because I did not understand, such the type of work he used to do, I was more into what refined faces people used to do.
More
Like,
classical, yes, yeah.
so I did not understand that at that time. So my father said that, "Arey, what mashhoor bade aadu painter hai, Maqbool Fida Husain," which I mentioned in my book and which I told him also. That is when I have known him since then.
I see. And he had a remarkable personality. I met him a couple of times. Extraordinary man. Obviously a visual master. What stood out for you personally during your interaction with him?
Not only a visual master, but a great storyteller,
Yes, he was. Yes.
great painter. Like one day, myself and Hussein and Madhuri were walking from one set to the other set in
Okay.
Mehboob Studios.
During the shoot of his film, you mean?
Gam.
Garigamini. Okay.
Madhuri was ahead. Me and Hussein Sahab were behind. So I asked Hussein Sahab, I said, film banana itna mushkil kaam hai. How do you manage the finances? So he said, लोग घोड़े बेच के सोते हैं, मैं घोड़े बेच के फिल्म बनाता हूँ.
But, did he ever give you any little piece by him? Because he was known to scribble and gift it
Yeah,
away.
no, yeah, I think once he had done something, I don't even have that.
Oh, really? Oh, really? When was
He
your
wa-
last? When was your last meeting with him?
the last meeting, if I don't remember exactly, one of the last meeting on his Eid, I always used to go. He always used to call me. His last Eid in Bombay was the only Eid when he had invited celebrities.
I see.
Urmila Matondkar was there, Tabbu was there, and quite a few more people were there. Otherwise, on his Eid, he just used to be this community of that area where he lived and he had come to Bombay.
Right.
At
Right.
that uh, Badri Bagh or something like that.
I see. Just
Behind now.
last. Okay. Just last 3 or 4 questions. One is, since you mentioned Gajagamini, do you remember anything in terms of the way because he, like we discussed, he was a visual master, so his framing was very different. Do you remember anything from the shoot of that film?
See, the thing is, the first day when he called me, and when I took out my camera, he said, "You can't take a picture." I said, "Why?" He said, "Press is not allowed." I said, I'm not from the press. I'm your friend. You can't say no to me." He had made a set of Banaras Ghat
Right.
in yellow. It was beautiful. I mean, it was so beautiful that I just cannot tell you. Just went out of my. I couldn't believe it. I've seen so many film sets. I mean, it's not that I've seen 1 or 2 sets.
Yeah.
Been seeing film sets since I was young. Amitabh Bachchan, Herman, everybody's set I've seen. But this was outstanding. He was very
I see. I see. And obviously his conception as a painter came in full play there.
Yes. Each celebration used to be a big celebration every year, which he used to do at Badar Bagh.
Right.
This is the place where he used to live when he had come to Bombay.
I see.
So he always used to call the entire community which were living around.
Okay.
And there used to be at least 400 people, sitting for lunch. And they used, in them, they take a huge thal or whatever, and they have all the food, and 6-8 people sit together to eat. So I'll send you one of the images, then you'll have an idea.
I remember that photograph. I think you had put it once on Facebook. It's a big platter. It's like a communal eating together, right?
So he was very close to all those earlier people also whom he had met, and he always cared for everybody.
Right.
I don't know. Do you know the story of his being barefoot?
Yeah. In fact, I had asked him. He told me that early in his life he used to paint cinema posters, and while standing on the scaffolding, the bamboos, it was easier for him to grip with bare feet than shoes. That's what he told me. I don't know if that's what it was.
No. I'll just tell you. I'm forgetting the name of that poet. There was a poet who was very friendly with this Husain Saab. And got very bad memory at times. So once that poet he was very hospitalized and he was in very bad shape. Husain Saab went to meet him. And then he thought, this guy is such a great poet. And see the condition he's lying here. Nobody will take care of him. He doesn't have any money. So anyway, that time he survived. And after a few days, he died. So when he died, Husain Saab went to attend his funeral. And while he was just trying to recollect the name of that poet, and while he was returning from this funeral, he just wanted to feel the pain of that man. And it was summer. He just threw away his chappal and he started walking.
I see. So that's the story.
That's the story. I'll just tell you. I mean, यहाँ तक आके दिमाग में नाम नहीं याद आ रहा है. I thought I'll tell you about him, but that's the story. And Husain Saab told me that every time people ask me, I tell them different stories.
Just last couple of things. I'm sorry about that.
I want to add one more. Once you finish, I'll tell you.
No, go ahead. I'm waiting.
One thing I want to tell you, which I have never spoken to anybody,
Okay.
because people may not believe also. So I'm very shy of that, but I'll tell you.
Okay.
When I was shooting for Do Raste, Bindu was a newcomer.
Right.
So she was also looking for somebody who could take her pictures, and so very often I used to take a lot of her photographs for herself also. So one day she told me, tomorrow I'm shooting with Vinod Khanna. So why don't you come? That was far away in Chembur, some SL studio or something. I don't remember the name. So I went there. So Bindu and Vinod Khanna were shooting a song sequence. The song was शीशे पे जमी है धूल अभी अब प्यार करें तो कैसे करें. I still remember.
Okay.
So I took a lot of pictures of Vinod Khanna also. We had lunch together, Bindu, myself, Vinod Khanna, and I had a friend. So 4 of us had lunch. After that, I shot some pictures of Vinod Khanna. And I had I had my own lab. I had lots of photographic paper. There was no problem. So I made some 8-10 prints of Vinod Khanna in 10 by 12 size. And next day, when I went to office, I showed it to Bolu. बोला अरे बड़ा अच्छा फोटो है विनोद खन्ना कब मिला. मैंने बोला बिंदु शूटिंग साइड कम राज्य को दिखाया. बोला नहीं. चलो ये took me Rajkot slide the office next to us. I mean, one was the staff office room and the next corner was. He went and showed it to Raj Khosla. Raj Khosla saw the picture. He liked it very much. He looked at me and he said, "Ki, I'm starting a new film. Tell him to come and see me."
Acha.
Mera gaon, mera desh.
Oh, really?
So I called up Vinod Khanna. He was staying somewhere in Girgam or some old Bombay. I told Vinod Khanna that Raj Khosla saw your pictures and he liked it very much. And he told me, come to Mehboob Studio and I'd like to meet you. He comes to office after 12. Vinod Khanna aaya. He didn't come. 4-5 दिन गुजर गए. One day as I was going in the corridor, I saw Raj Khosla was coming from there. He said, "Arey, what happened? I told you to call that Vinod Khanna. He hasn't come. Tell him I want to see him urgently." I remember that was a Saturday. And next day I was going with my brother to Juhu and my brother went to see an actress called Surekha.
Right.
I think she was working in Khadamad Abbas something. So I asked my brother, can I make a call from here? Bhaiya ne kaha kar lo. So Bhaiya went inside and from there I called Vinod Khanna and I said, Vinodji, Pradeep Chandra here. And I'd asked, Raji was asking about you, you have not come. So you didn't tell me whom to meet. तुझसे बात करना पड़ेगा क्या? Raji से बात करना पड़ेगा. He want to see you. Can you come tomorrow? He said okay. Next day was Monday. He said I'll come after 2 o'clock. So next day Vinod Khanna came and he saw the Raj Khosla's office. He just opened the door. I was sitting there. He said, came out. I came out. He says. So I went. I took him to Raj Khosla. और दोनों ऐसे गले मिले जैसे पंजाबी लोग मिलते हैं.
जी जी.
बिछड़े भाई. And I was out. I sat in my room and then Vinod Khanna came. He was very happy again. Opened the door and said, "Pradeep, come." And he said, "Thank you. I've signed the film. I'm doing the film. Mera gaon, mera desh."
Think about that. Your photographs essentially opened that door, right?
And then we went to, as we came outside on the compound, in the compound, Shatru was standing there. ऐसे खड़ा रहता था. कहाँ है? इसे राज खोसला से मिलने आया था.
अच्छा.
Doing a film with him, मेरा गाँव मेरा देश. And Shatru was trying for that film.
Oh, really?
I thought I'll tell you that. I told this story.
No, this is a very interesting story. And I could see that you knew Vinod Khanna rather well, right?
So that was the story I wanted to tell you.
Okay.
I never shared Anybody.
Now, you can hear me, right? Because in between
I
it
can.
dropped. Okay.
I can hear.
Last two things. Does the fact that you know so many of these movie stars so well over so many years make it hard for you to produce candid, unguarded photos?
Uh, I tell you, I have known people, but unguarded at times you can. But otherwise, in today's time, it is not possible to enter a studio.
Right.
It is not possible to enter anybody's home until and even if I have to go to meet, say, an XYZ, I have to tell them why I want to meet them. Then they will decide, even if they know me, that
Right.
whether they want me to do that or they do not.
Right.
It's not that easy anymore.
Right.
Earlier it was.
Of the 5 books that you've done, Amir Khan, the two Bachchans, Maqbool Fida Husain, and there's one more.
Abhishek.
Abhishek, yeah. No, I mean the two Bachchans, that is father and son, that is 2 books. Maqbool Fida Husain, that's third. Then you've done Amir Khan, which is the 5th one.
Amitabh I have done two.
Okay, so that makes it 5. That makes it 5, yeah. Yeah.
One is this with Vikas Sinha.
Right, right. Now, these books, I'm curious because these movie stars are so protective of their own representation in terms of images. And do they have a problem that someone else might make money on their images? Do they object? Do they tell you anything at all?
I tell you, the most of the images that I have used
Uh-huh.
are my own images.
Yeah, no, but it's still their images, right? Here in Hollywood, if you're using my photograph to make money, for instance, some movie stars say you're using my photograph. You may have taken it, but it's me. Do you encounter anything of this kind?
Fortunately, no.
Okay.
Because I have, Bachchan ji had almost seen most of my photographs. A couple of pictures, some of my pictures are also in his office.
Yeah.
Abhishek's drawings I had done, I had shown him many of them, some of them also in his office. And I keep showing him whatever I do.
Right.
So with him, there was never a problem. Hussain Saab, of course, no. Abhishek Bachchan is very, very nice man. I love that man. Great guy. So once I was shooting something and I said, do I have to ask you? He says, no, Pradeep ji, with you, you can do anything. I trust you, whatever you want.
I see. I see.
Amir Khan really didn't react to my book. He
I
didn't
see.
cooperate.
Oh, he didn't.
No.
Do you speculate why that was so? Why didn't he do it?
I'm not sure, but maybe one thing they are very particular. They don't want to endorse your book.
Yeah, because you'll make money. That's their problem.
They want to write. They will write themselves and call it biography or something.
Right, right. And finally, Pradeep, is there anyone of major consequence in the film industry over the last 4 or 5 decades that you haven't known?
I haven't known.
Yeah. I mean, it seems that you've known all of them.
No. The new
Oh, no,
problem.
not by known I mean not maybe in a personal sense, but at least you've interacted with so many of them so many times. I'm sure many of them are extremely familiar with who you are, right?
Yes, that is because of my books and these stories and all which are being used here and there.
Okay. Whose is the most enduring memory for you over the last 5 decades?
Of course, there's Amitabh Bachchan,
Okay.
Ashok Kumar.
Ashok Kumar too. Tell me about Ashok Kumar. How come?
One day I went to meet Ashok Kumar, and during his, when he was not that star anymore. So I called him. He said, "Come home, come home." So when I went there, he called me in his bedroom, and he had a very high bed, maybe at this
I
height.
see.
And just next to that bed on a small platform, very close to him, was his television, which he used to watch all the time. And I felt that he was a very sad man. Because his daughter was running, she may not like it or may deny this, but his daughter was running this school in his name in the same premises on the ground floor. And he said, see, she's running a school, she's earning in my name, but she has not even kept a matka for the students to have water.
I see.
They all come and take from my fridge. At that time, he said his electricity bill was 25,000.
Oh, I see.
This must have been years back.
Yeah.
So once I asked him, I said that after you're gone, who will take care of this man who has served you all his life? There was an elderly Muslim man. He said, "वो सब मैंने कर लिया."
Acha.
He won't start.
Acha.
Then he took me, he showed me all his paintings, and he says,
Yeah.
"तुमको कोई चाहिए तो ले लो."
Oh, really?
So I said, "What will I do? I had no place, so I had a small house." He said, "No, thank you very much." Then he asked me, "Do you drink?" He said, "Come one day, we'll have a drink." So that day, again I went. Then I had a drink with him. Then we spoke about, I told him about the films I had seen. I told him that Kanu Rai, who worked with him in Mahal, his friend, he was our neighbor.
Yeah.
Spoke to him about R.D. Mathur, cameraman. He was also our neighbor. He said, "अच्छा, ये लोग आपके पड़ोसी थे?" तो काफी बातें हुई. So I felt very sad of him there.
Right.
Because
And to conclude, Pradeep, what excites you these days? Are you working on anything interesting now?
I'm working on a few books
Okay.
which won't have text as such,
Okay.
which would be a designer's book.
I see.
And apart from that, I'm working on a book on J.P. Singhal.
Okay.
He was a very famous painter of his time,
Yeah.
but today he's remembered more for his photographs.
Right.
And then I also have to do a book on Pritish Nandi, which is pending. Then my first book, A.B. the Legend, a Photographer's Tribute, I've taken back the rights, so that my book will be published again with some new editions, because that was published in 2006.
Yeah. So it's been a while, 15 years now. Yeah.
15 years. So all these things are going on.
Oh, wonderful.